All right, it's time to make a confession. I don't like my kids. Yeah, that's a bit of an overstatement. I just don't like their behavior sometimes. But I love them, and I want to be a good father. And so this is a confession of a frustrated father. If I'm honest with myself, and I really reflect upon what's going on in their minds, in their hearts, and in their lives, I've only got myself to blame. Do I ever get easily angry or easily frustrated with you?
Sometimes.
And what do you think? What do you feel when I'm short with you?
Sometimes I'm kind of like, what did I do wrong? I don't understand. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. I feel like you're mad at me for no reason at all.
Sometimes when they're super mad at me, I feel like, what did I ever do wrong? And then sometimes when they're like even madder, I'm like, I'm super duper mad at you because you're mad at me.
So if you were to say the one thing that makes Dad the most frustrated, what would it be?
Arguing with my brother. Arguing with my sister. Which we do that a lot, sadly. Just getting mad at me when you're playing video games. When I'm passing by and I get in your way.
So what does it sound like to you? Can you if you were me, can you show me what would I say or do?
You go like, Kaden, get out of the way!
All right.
Oh, look I just lost because you were in my way.
Can you look in the camera and show the camera what Daddy looks like when he's angry? What do I look like? Like this?
Interrupting the video.
Don't interrupt the video, kid! Sorry. What is one thing that I could do better when I'm frustrated?
I think that you could, when you get angry, like you tell me to take deep breaths. Have a break for like a few minutes and then come back.
Okay.
Maybe, like, take a few deep breaths, sit down, try to be calm for a tiny bit.
Does Dad ever get really super mad at you?
Yeah.
And what do you think when Dad gets super mad? What do you think?
I should be good.
That you should be good? So you think whenever Dad is mad, you're like, I should be good. Do you? I'm really thankful for my kids who are willing to answer honestly and openly and help give me some insight into the issues that I have as a frustrated father. It was interesting to me that they all answered similarly, even though none of them were in the room at the same time as the others. This is the how not to guide for frustrated fathers. Number 1, don't provoke your kids. Don't cause a strong emotional reaction. And sometimes in our frustration, in our anger, because we're not getting what we want, we can tend to be a little bit too firm. I know for me, with my kids, at times, I get upset over the silliest things that really have nothing to do with them, because what I've done is I've stored up frustration in my own heart, yelling at them for getting in front of the TV, or maybe being a little too loud. And sometimes they're legitimate frustrations too, but I am responsible to create the culture in which they live. And when I provoke them with my own frustration, with my own anger, how can I expect them at their age to respond appropriately?
Sometimes when they're like even madder, I'm like, I'm super duper mad at you because you're mad at me.
Instead, I'm looking to give them encouragement. I want them to see the value of responding appropriately. And so how much more so as their father do I need to not be frustrated, but instead being patient and kind and loving towards them? Number 2, don't lead by loud. Don't raise your voice. And this one is a particular area that I'm working on, because over the last even few weeks, I've noticed that my volume tends to increase when my patience gets much, much shorter.
Kaden, get out of the way!
And yet, I'm yelling at them to stop yelling at their siblings, and that doesn't make much sense, does it? Lastly, don't be critical. It's so much easier for us to tear down than it is to build up. It certainly has a much more lasting impact on your kids when you're being critical with them. I find that even with my own kids, the things that they remember oftentimes are the areas where I've been a little bit too harsh or a little bit too critical. And so the three things that I'm committing to work on for the sake of my kids and for the sake of myself and for my family and creating an environment in which they can succeed is, number one, don't provoke them. Number two, don't lead with loud. And number three, don't be critical. Ultimately, this stuff only benefits me, only benefits my kids and my wife and the family culture that we're trying to build if I'm faithful in following it. And so I'm committed to taking time to think these things over, because I don't want to be a frustrated father, but a faithful father, a father who is loving and kind and gracious, even when their behavior is not in line with what I desire. It's also important that we as dads discipline with firmness when they are wrong. We have to correct. I'm just talking simply about setting an environment where they can learn. I think there's a few things that we can do. First, listen to your kids. They have insight and knowledge into how they experience you. And sometimes as a dad, it's just important to really understand what they think and what they feel and how you approach them.
Sometimes I'm kind of like, what did I do wrong? I don't understand. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong.
And sometimes that means having to dig a little deeper and ask them questions that gets down to the root or the heart of what's really going on. Does Dad ever get really super mad at you?
Yeah.
Sometimes they want to say the right thing so they can either spare my feelings, or they may not even feel comfortable in their own skin to give those answers. What do you think when Dad gets super mad? What do you think?
I should be good.
That you should be good? So you think whenever Dad is mad, you're like, I should be good. The more we engage with our kids, the better. Lastly, and most importantly, is none of this will matter to them if you don't put it into practice. You can't just listen and ask questions if you're not willing to change. And so over the next few weeks, I want to be a faithful father who listens to what they have to say, who asks them questions, and who really sets about making changes in my life. My hope is that they will find wholeness as I find wholeness, going from being a frustrated father to a faithful one. Thanks. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you like things like this, please leave a like and subscribe.